Alright everyone, welcome back to the channel for another Bitcoin update. So in this episode we're going to be talking about the Bitcoin and tech stock rally. Before we do jump into the Nasdaq and other stock market indices, let's first give a brief overview on Bitcoin. In the lower time frame you're seeing, looking at Binance alone, you've got more than 61.75 thousand Bitcoin bought. On the daily time frame, this is basically happening because you've cleared all areas of resistance over on the VPVR. On the 4-hourly time frame, you can see beautiful continuation coming in, crazy volume coming in over on the BTC USD index, and this is happening on the 4-hourly time frame as we solidify our first 4-hourly close with a new 4-hourly candle pushing us up above the previous resistance flip support on the channel of this massive bear flag. So as you can see, we've been forming this channel slash bear flag for a very long period in time right now, and we've finally blasted back above it. I'd like to emphasize that we have not had a confirmed breakout from it yet. We've had a confirmed breakout in terms of volume, but I'd definitely like to see a retest of 23,700 to 23,800 depending on when we come back, and then go off to higher price targets, because once again, like I've been saying, we have free reign to move to the upside until the next FOMC meeting in 7 days and until the next GDP results in the next 8 days. So up until the 27th and the 28th, I am expecting a capitulation after those dates. However, lower time frames, we are inevitably bullish. We're clearing all of our previous resistance. You know, yesterday we were pumping above our 200-week EMA. Today we're pumping above this bear flag. And you're also seeing on the daily time frame, we are pushing our head above our daily EMA ribbons for the first time since March of 2022. So before we do a further deep dive and talk about these charts more in depth for Bitcoin, let's jump into the Nasdaq and other stock market indices. So if we start off on the 4-hourly time frame for the Nasdaq, we first of all need to pay homage to the Nasdaq, because as you can see, when was the Nasdaq making its bottom? Well, it decided that it wanted to make its bottom on the 16th of June as it was coming back down into previous areas of support. Now, what was Bitcoin doing? Well, it was still capitulating until the 18th, which means while Bitcoin was sitting around this range deciding, you know, hey, what do I want to do? The Nasdaq was saying, this is the local bottom, you know, I'm moving up, I'm going to start forming bullish patterns, which is why we always do like to look at the Nasdaq, because it's a leading indicator of Bitcoin. This broke bullish 2 days before Bitcoin did, and subsequently, looking at what happens in the next 7 or 8 days, if we do get a perfect storm of bearish news coming in for Bitcoin, looking at the Nasdaq and the stock market starting to head down first will be a great leading indicator of when we can expect a roll around for Bitcoin, or at least a retest in the local timeframes if everything does go bullish for Bitcoin. However, once again, I can't be bullish in the mid to higher timeframes until the Fed pivots, so we'll see what happens in the next 7 days. Lower timeframes though, I am exceptionally bullish. You can see we've formed a beautiful W breakout from the Nasdaq. I won't be drawing it out, wasting your time. The price target of this is literally sitting right here at 13,000. The reason why I'm not going to be giving you the price target, well, I've just given you the price target for this, but the reason why I'm not going to draw it out is because there is a more bullish price target in town, and that is the breakout of this ascending wedge. Now, from where we are, or let's talk about from the breakout first, this would be a 7.8% breakout, considering we've only gone up, I think, about 2% so far. We've gone up, yeah, basically exactly 2%. Because we've gone up 2% so far, we've still got about another 6%, 5.6% to move to the upside until we do find any real areas of resistance. Now, on the daily time frame, you can see we do have a slight area of resistance coming in by the time we have our next 1.7% pump to the upside. Bear in mind the Nasdaq's up 1.5% today, and because of that, Bitcoin was able to move up, you know, 3.5%. So if the Nasdaq only comes up to this bearish price target, gets invalidated and rolls back down, you'll still see more continuation for Bitcoin in the lower time frames as well. The next level from there would be a massive breakout, about another 4% to the upside, and then after then, once again, you've got another 5.6 from where we are right now. I definitely see the Nasdaq getting enough momentum, pushing up to some of these higher price targets, and let's just say hypothetically, because once again, Mid to higher time frames, it's pretty much impossible to know whether we're going to be breaking bullish until we have our FOMC/GDP results. I remain with my bearish bias in the mid to higher time frames until the Fed pivots. I've been saying this for months now. You know, I think some people maybe have came to my channel in the past month or so and have only seen me bearish, but you know, bear in mind, I've been bearish on Bitcoin, I've been bearish on altcoins for months and months and months and months now. So if hypothetically the Fed does pivot in the next 7 days, I'm still going to be buying these cryptos for, you know, more than 70 or 60% off from when I initially flipped bearish. So take that with a grain of salt. This is my trading plan. I am not flipping bullish until the Fed pivots. But let's just say hypothetically, the Fed pivots, GDP is positive. We have a perfect storm for bullish continuation for Bitcoin at that period in time. If the Fed pivots and if GDP is positive, I will be saying I'm bullish. I don't think that, or rather I would be saying I don't think we're getting ready for another capitulation to the downside. The Nasdaq, from where we would be at that period in time, has almost free reign to move up another 19% to fill these price gaps from all the way back at basically 14,800. We've got so much of a room to move to the upside. In the higher time frames, the Nasdaq could definitely take a huge pump, and as you can imagine, you know, if the Nasdaq moves up 20%, and Bitcoin's already up 3% today after the Nasdaq's moved up 1.5. This could mean, you know, Bitcoin in a conservative period could move up, you know, another 40%, 50%, 60%. Bitcoin could definitely take a huge tear to the upside. Let's finish off with our stock market analysis and then we'll jump back into Bitcoin. So looking at the SPY, I was looking at this morning, and the SPY actually tried to open its pre-market bearish, but as we got closer and closer and closer to the NYSE opening, the pre-market actually pushed up to basically break even / bullish, and since then we have been seeing some continuation. So stock market breaking out against all odds. We've got this beautiful W breakout pattern that we talked about. This would be meaning that the SPY can move up about another 4% before we do come into, you know, at least the price target of the W breakout. From there, you've got a lot of overhead resistance from over here. So, you know, once again, in the lower time frames, it seems almost undeniable that we are very bullish right now. But on the higher time frames, like the weekly, I mean, is this really like confirming a bull market or anything? In my opinion, we're really just range bound. You know, we're moving down, we're creating lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, and you know, I'm not saying that we're going to top out here. Let's just say we can push up another, you know, up to 410 like we said. This would still be a lower high if we do start coming down from here. So, you know, once again, you know, the market structure on all of the stock market, on all of the crypto markets, on all the markets in general, there is really nothing 100% confirming the bottom is in at this moment in time. The dollar's having a very nasty retrace in the past couple of days. On the daily time frame, it's really trying to hang in there, but you know, you pop over to the 4 hour and you can see it's very weak and very flat right now. You could potentially draw this out as a bear flag, but nonetheless, what's more interesting to me is if this gets continuation up until the countdown commences or the countdown is completed for the next FOMC meeting. So dollar is still very bullish, but it looks like it's coming down. Stock market is still very bearish, but in the lower time frames it looks like it's coming up. And the same for Bitcoin for me. Like, once again, you know, if we head over to the weekly time frame, are we really saying this is like 100% like a trend reversal? I mean, you know, once again, you've got a lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. And you know, you could see, once again, like I said, you could push up to some of these areas of resistance all the way up here on the VPVR at around about 29,000, and it would still be in a lower low, lower high trajectory. So once again, I'm really not worried about missing out on the first part of this move if the bear market low is already in. You know my feelings on this. I don't think the bear market low is in at this moment in time, but nonetheless, we will have a pretty good idea within the next 7 or 8 days. I won't repeat that much further. But in the lower time frames, let's jump back into Bitcoin. Daily time frame, squeeze momentum indicators heading up very strongly, which once again is one of the main reasons why I'm exceptionally bullish in the lower time frames. Pairing that with the fact that as you have now broken out of this bear flag resistance, you've got about another 5% move minimum to the upside before you run into any resistance. Now, Just look at the VPVR. The volume profiles for the visible range are absolutely, they're just not there. You know, they're cowering in the corner. There is no volume traded around these regions. So once Bitcoin, if Bitcoin does manage to push above 25,500, you could literally get another 12% continuation to the upside, meaning from where we are now, another 18% move to the upside is still very much potentially in play. So, you know, once again, lower time frames, we're exceptionally bullish. We're getting all types of continuation volume coming in on the lowers. Daily time frame, 4-hourly time frame, they all look beautiful. We're on the 4-hourly and the 1-hourly as well. We're having a strong impulse with a confirmed retest of the 4-hourly EMAs. Everything's looking beautiful. However, on the daily, a lot of these are getting slightly overextended. So, you know, you are pumping above the daily EMA ribbons. You would need to back test these before we can go any further with that. But nonetheless, if I pull up the MFI actually, as to not have too many indicators, MFI, add the MFI on the daily time frame. These are so overextended right now. The RSI is pushing up for 65. The money flow indicator is pushing up past 80. So let's just say hypothetically, the bear market low is in, and within the next 7 or 8 days, you know, this is also going to be the perfect storm for Bitcoin. We're going to find out the Fed is pivoting, GDP is positive, the recession has been denied, not happening, bull market commences now. Lower time frames like the daily, these would still be saying, hey, you know, coming into these meetings, you're very likely to have one last pullback to the downside when these do come into play. And then if everything turns out absolutely beautiful for Bitcoin, this further push to the upside will allow the momentum indicators on the daily to get absolutely overextended. Then a beautiful pullback to previous resistances, flip support, will be an amazing place to DCA into the market if the Fed does pivot. Once again, this purely relies on what happens in the next 7 or 8 days. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't let you know what's going to happen in the Fed meeting. I'm not Nancy Pelosi. I don't have insider information for these, but nonetheless, I can just look at previous trends and highlight that, you know, basically every time these capitulations happened, we were having, you know, this over here as well, on the 3rd and the 4th. Every single time we had these FOMC meetings, you had massive capitulations, and we've got one coming on the 27th right here. So keep your eye on this, where the arrow reaches its apex. This, in my opinion, is going to be, even if we're bullish, even if we're bearish, it's going to be a great place for a retest to happen. If the Fed does not pivot, I see another move coming back down, probably to 16 to 15,000 before the bear market lowers in. That is when I plan on starting to ape back into Bitcoin as we break below the previous low. I think a lot of volume would come in, a lot of fear would come into the markets. The stock market would have a beautiful capitulation, because bear in mind, once again, this correction we've got over on the stock market right now is absolutely mundane. To look at this as a bear market would be one of the easiest bear markets we've ever lived through on the stock market. I mean, if we purely go back to the weekly time frame, 200 week, you can see over on the March 2020 pandemic scare, we landslided below the 200 week moving average. Now, in my opinion, I don't even think it's, you know, up for debate. I don't think anyone can argue this opinion. Our economy is in a much worse state right now than it was all the way back here. The price of oil is through the roof, the dollar's through the roof, inflation's through the roof, CPI is through the roof, energy is through the roof, and, you know, energy is a core component of CPI, but nonetheless does deserve a special mention, considering how when we look at our last CPI report, it was up, I think it was like 40, maybe closing on 50% of an increase per year. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, so let's be conservative and say it was at least a 40% increase year to date. The economy is in shambles, and subsequently it doesn't make much sense for the bottom to be right here, right now, for the stock market, for the Nasdaq, in my opinion. But in the lower time frames, you know, you've got Google, Facebook, Tesla, they're all going on beautiful rallies. Coinbase is up 19% today. This is really the only stock that I actually own at this moment in time. We are beautifully pushing up. We have our next earnings report for this over on the 9th of August. We've also got earnings reports scattered across the board. 27th of July for Facebook. I believe Tesla's is today. So Tesla's earnings reports are today, and subsequently we've just got a lot of things going on, from the FOMC, GDP, the next CPI report. We've got earnings reports for the tech stocks, the stock market, all coming within the next couple of weeks. So it's definitely going to be an interesting stir of events that are happening in the markets. I think a lot of volatility is soon to ensue. It looks like the reported looks like the revenue for Netflix is up, surprisingly. I mean, if you zoom out, it doesn't really make sense why the earnings for Netflix are up. As far as I can tell, you know, all of my normie friends who used to watch Netflix don't watch it anymore. But nonetheless, is what it is. I won't get into that. But the tech stocks, the stock market in general, looks like in the lower time frames we can definitely see continuation. The Nasdaq out of all of them looks the best, which is beautiful because we want the Nasdaq to be heading up because the Nasdaq is highly correlated to Bitcoin. So expect a move to continue to happen over on the Nasdaq, and because I expect this move to keep on happening in the lower time frames for the Nasdaq, I definitely see Bitcoin pushing up, making new local highs in the short term. However, once again, higher time frames, nothing has changed at this moment in time. I would love to pivot and switch to a bullish stance. My channel would get more views, crypto YouTube would get more views, I'd be getting more likes, I'd be getting more subscribers if I was bullish all the time. But nonetheless, I can't be bullish until the Fed pivots. So when the Fed does pivot, I will be the first to jump out of bed and slam my table and tell you it is time to ape in. But that time hasn't happened yet. So until that happens, I will be conservatively sitting on the sidelines for leverage trading. However, like I've been saying the past couple of videos, I have started, I had one big DCA order, about 8% of my portfolio, where I did pick up some Bitcoin and Solana. That is predominantly what I bought, mainly Solana, because I've been buying Bitcoin religiously since 25,000. Once again, if you do watch my channel, I said 25, 24, 23, all the way down in $1,000 increments, down to 10,000, I would be buying the dip. And we came all the way down to 18,000 for my buy order. So I've been DCAing Bitcoin. I just have the largest amount of my capital for DCAs on the sideline right now in case the bottom is not in, because at this moment in time, I still don't believe the bottom is in. Local time frames, lower time frames, daily, I think a move up to 28,600 is definitely on the table though. We need to do it in the next 7 or 8 days though. It's, you know, in my opinion, it's not going to happen after that, because in my opinion, the Fed is not going to pivot, and subsequently we should expect another leg to the downside. Inflation maybe close to the top. However, I just think another month or two is probably more likely. So that is all I've got for today's video. I hope you did enjoy it. Once again, the dollar is looking pretty weak right now. Tech stocks, stock markets are looking very, very bullish in the lower time frames. Bitcoin's looking bullish in the lower time frames, but for all of them, none of them have yet changed their trajectory. Clean up the chart, ignore the noise, you know, make your own opinions, do your own TA. In my opinion, looking at this in its simplest form, I'm noticing you've got highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows. And, you know, once again, if we top out now, or even if we push up to my price targets, which once again, in the short term, I'm very bullish. I think 28,500 could be in play. But even if 28,500 is in play, it's still a lower high from 32,500. So I want to see more bullish information come into the markets. I want to see the Fed start to pivot, because until all of these things start to happen, you know, in my opinion, nothing would have changed in the mid to higher time frame. So lower time frames, I'm very bullish. If Bitcoin and Solana keep on massively heading up to the upside, and if on the day of the 27th and the 28th, if GDP is negative and the Fed does not pivot, then I will be selling some of my positions that I were DCAing down at these lower levels. So that's all I've got. Once again, highly recommend you to make your own TA. This is just my opinion. And as always, my friends, cowboy out. Peace.